Good afternoon or good morning to everyone. This is a webinar today to discuss how AI can improve service management. And we are running this in conjunction with one of our partners, Halo, who has a fantastic ITSM tool. And I would like to introduce Louis today from Halo, who is going to run the presentation and just take us through some of the features of Halo. BDQ, we've been a Atlassian partner for many years. We're now also a Halo partner and got offices in the UK and the US. So, Louis, if I hand over to you, you've got a great presentation and demo, and we can deal with questions as they come up.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again for sort of organising today, and thank you everyone for joining in. As Chris said, I do have a sort of presentation on not only just AI today, but also sort of Halo more in general. I know some of you might know what Halo is, but some of you might not. So a bit more of a generic overview of the company as well. If I share my screen. Flip this over. So in terms of myself, as Chris mentioned, I'm Louis Scanlon. Work here as an account executive within Halo. Started about a year and a half ago on support, sort of moved through the ranks in terms of an ethos. The idea is you start on support and you build your way up as you go on. So really that idea of starting from the bottom and going on. Our plan, as I mentioned, is to touch onto it. But first going on to that idea of who HaloITSM are and what we actually provide. So we're a service management platform built across the organization, not just ITSM. It's a name that's sort of going for a little bit of a refurb at the moment, as we do enterprise service management as well. So often get facilities, HR teams as well. But then with also integrations into such as DevOps and Azure, you can begin to build that development side of things as well. Essentially, what we're trying to deliver is the easiest centralization platform for your teams as possible. So being able to integrate into lots of different tools across different departments with easy to low code functionality. So when you are bringing in those additional departments, you're not having to worry about the IT literacy, and you can make sure that people are all available to work on it. As a company ourselves within Halo, we've worked over the past previous years getting 100% growth year on year, and we actually recently won an award for top 30 growing companies in the UK, not just in technology, that is overall. We are headquartered out in Stowmarket, which is a bit unusual for a company such as our size and our sort of technology scope, but it's purely because our CEO is still very hands-on, still wanting to grow the company himself, and therefore he and his family moved out to Stowmarket, I think about 25 years ago, and they've never moved, and we now only really hire from local unis and local colleges as well. As of last year, we actually hit the 4,000 client mark as well. Variety of sectors, we do well in public and private sectors. Education is one of our focal points as well. And as you can see on the screen here, we've got Sky, Microsoft and Siemens, as well as many other household names that you might recognise. I'm sure if you've sort of watched the football or the F1, you'll have noticed the HaloITSM on the halo of the McLaren car, or the HaloITSM sort of spread across the whole of the Portman Road street as well. So a bit of history on Halo. In terms of Halo itself, it's relatively new to the market. We had a big refurb in 2018, but in terms of the experience and the product, it's been about since mid-90s. So it was originally the Net Help Desk, was created on floppy disk, immediately before my time, but it was sold to Quick Fit the first down. Over time, it's grown, and then around 2016, 2017, we began a full rehaul of the product itself. We then made it on a modern UI. We used sort of the market concerns and the main issues with the existing tools at that time to really begin to build an easy-to-use, low-code model that was still in line with our functionalities and also our philosophies. We utilize the React framework, so same as Facebook. So if you were to use it on your phone, you wouldn't notice any functionality loss. It would be that same use case. It's also built in a complete REST API, which has allowed us to have all these integrations, but also means that if we don't directly integrate with one of your integrations, we can just roll it out to the further scope as well. Since then, we've released a new stable release every quarter each year, and we actually publish all of our release notes online as well, so you can see what's been changed. We're also very close to the community, so if you are to suggest one of these feature requests, you'll get a ticket ID. If that's actually to make it into the next stable, you'll actually receive a little email to say your feature request has made it in, just so you have that visibility, trying to stay as close in contact with the community as possible. Skip forward to this year, we're one of the fastest growing companies in the ITSM space, and our name is slowly creeping out there. We've recently been recognised by Gartner as well as one of the best AI companies in the scene as well. A large part of the company is privately owned, and it means that we can be a lot more dynamic and a lot more flexible with how we do. It's allowed us to keep completely internal developers, and in fact, some of the developers that made the 1994 system are still actually here today working on it. There's also a written commitment into our contracts, which says that we won't be selling or be part of acquisitions for the next 10 years. This is a rolling contract. At the moment, it's running till 2033, sorry, but it can go further on from that as well. The final part of our sort of philosophy that we try and stick to is our licensing. We believe there shouldn't be any paywalls, and all the AI functionality today is included within that. So it's all on a modular basis. You pay per agent, so technician that needs to be within the system. If you have a situation, especially as you're bringing in further teams, that you don't want to have lots of licenses spent on HR and facilities when they're very rarely within the system, then we also have the option for concurrent licenses. So being able to share them, split the numbers between named and concurrent, and have the most cost-effective IT system as possible.
So an interesting point there, Louis, is you don't generally have to license extra modules, do you? It's all inclusive. The thing you do license is the number of named users you want or concurrent users you want.
Exactly that, yeah.
Yeah. And another interesting point is, yeah, you can run it on-prem as well as in your SaaS cloud. Anyway, sorry, I went to steal your thunder on that.
No worries, and just to build on what Chris said there, so while we are sort of hosted in AWS, we have very secure cloud infrastructure. If for whatever reason you did want to go on-prem, more than happy to cater to that as well. All of our support team go through on-prem training, so we're all able to sort of deploy you and help you even when you aren't in our direct cloud. One of the other things is, as we've mentioned, is always putting customers first. So we actually have a Halo community page where we have a dedicated team who work on it. They'll respond to any questions, but they'll also monitor sort of feedback. They'll monitor feature requests within that to see what people are actually asking for, and then we'll begin to develop from that. At the end of it, the idea is that we've got a system that allows you to centralize everything with no code and sort of a modern format. And I'll show you the system in a second, and hopefully you'll be able to see that. Of course, today is mainly about AI. Appreciate that was a bit of a Halo introduction. I imagine there's a few of you that will have heard, also won't have heard. So the point of today is to go through AI, what it actually is within the ITSM scope, and then also link that into Halo and how Halo have integrated that into the system. So I think the best place to start with this is actually to start talking about how AI works within this scope. So in its current form, it's an augmented search. It does it on a database of knowledge or maybe existing tickets as well, but it's not just searching for text. It'll also be searching for contextual content as well. So being able to pick up on the more human side of it. If they're talking about a certain thing, if they say thank you or in certain other words, it'll still be able to pick up on it saying thank you. Each piece of data is sent to a large language model. How you connect it is up to yourselves. So Halo, as I mentioned, provide an open AI connection. But if you have your own AI connection, you can plug that into Halo as well. It then generates a vector representation of this database that can then be used to create scores so that when you are working through that, you'll have that information. It is worth noting that for the cloud side of things, when stored in AWS, you will have separate databases for each instance. So when I do mention the idea of a large language model, you're not training a wider large language model. It's purely just training your database and the data that you have internally. When you use AI and you begin to search through that database, then it will begin to return embedded scores which will have an indication of how much of a match it is. So for example, matching existing tickets, matching articles as well. Some of the examples are Azure OpenAI, as I've mentioned, but also ChatGPT, and there are others coming out just as AI begins to grow. A lot of them are based within sort of developing a vectorized database. So the functionalities are similar depending on the tool you use. Of course, there'll be some differences, but a lot of the things I go through today will be available if you use Halo's AI or if you use your own one as well. So I guess then linking that into Halo, how does that actually look within the system? So at the moment, it does exactly how I've described so far. So it embeds that vectorized database into your system. You can then begin to build out prompts, so asking it to scan through that database and provide answers, populating fields, or even starting automations as well. Every time that comes back, it then acts as a normal field within the system, and you can build out workflows from that. In terms of linking that use case into the actual ITSM side of things, the key takeaways for this, and hopefully you'll find today, is that idea of being able to increase automation, efficiency, and also being able to predict things. So incoming tickets, using historical data to have a better idea of how you'll be able to act going forward. By enabling AI to augment your service desk, you should also see direct increases sort of in that efficiency side of things, removing the need for human intervention in routine tasks, so allowing your agents to spend time elsewhere where their resource, their skills is more valuable, instead of spending them doing, I like to call them tier 0 tasks, those things that require very little human brain power, but a lot of human time to sort of scroll through and get everything done. Of course, AI is constantly growing as well, so AI will create a shift towards proactiveness and potentially help prevent issues from occurring. But then over time, there might be more functionalities that come out from that. So it is a part of your tool that could really help you with long-term growth, being able to keep up with trends in the market and your competitors, by making sure you're staying ahead on this side of the tool system. So I guess I realize I've said a lot of high-level overview of what AI can look like, what Halo is, and also how it works within Halo. But I appreciate the best way to show this would just be to sort of share my screen and actually show you what that can look like. So that's exactly what I'm going to do today. If I very quickly stop sharing my screen.
Well, that's great. Just maybe a quick question, Lou. What are the benefits of being able to use your own AI model versus the Halo AI model?
Yeah, so in terms of the main benefits, it would be if you're using your AI model from a wider company scope, it means you can begin to use the information not just from the Halo database, but also if you've got information from other aspects and other tools that you're using it on, you might have a wider large language model that you can pull information from and therefore give a slightly more wider scope of personalized answers within the system.
And I suppose it also guarantees that all data from your system, if you so wish, it doesn't have to go anywhere near Halo's systems.
That
It can go onto your own private model.
that is the other use case, just that idea of sort of security blanket. You know exactly where that data is. You've got a lot more control of it as well.
No, thank you.
So what we're sort of seeing on the screen at the moment, and again, for that idea of people that have seen Halo before and people that haven't seen Halo before, I am going to sort of go on a very quick overview. So here is the agent profile. So this is what you'll see when you log in, and you can customize this and configure this to how you want. When I spoke earlier about there being a modular basis, this is what that modular side would look like. And we can see here, I haven't quite turned the AI on this specific instance. If I were to turn that on, you'd be able to see all that information. Click into it, we can see those ability to have default Halo connection, and then your own OpenAI and etc. and your own connections beyond that. The other side of it is the end user portal. The main reason I like to highlight this is also because of the chatbot. I'll touch on the functionalities within the chatbot later, but there's lots of functionalities in terms of being able to give your end users instant help without the need for agent interaction, but it's also fully audited. So if your AI help isn't fully beneficial, your agents will still be able to see what's been said, how they've approached it, just so that your first response, you know what's going on, and you've got that idea. Going into an actual instance where AI has been a bit more set up, and what we've got an example of here is AI suggestions and insights. When a ticket is logged into Halo, you can actually ask it to scan the ticket and provide insights into what it says. So AI-generated summary is a very popular one, especially if you're passing tickets around different teams. When it comes into an agent's queue, rather than having to read through a long thread of emails and private notes, straight away they can see a generated summary of what's been going on and how they can potentially help with this. We then have other fields such as suggested priority, the tonality, and also the suggested resolution. This hasn't been resolved yet, but if there was one, it would also be able to show up here. You could apply those automatically, or you can have them as shown today, as sort of suggestions to your agents. You'll also notice we have the AI suggestions tab, and this is a prime example of that vectorized database being able to provide a score on how best to use the system. So here what we've got is actually lots of suggested actions for your agents, depending on historical data, knowledge base articles, and other matching problems within the system. If you want to apply it, you can do so, but also if you didn't want to, you can leave it. So it is really up to your internal use and how much your company wants to leverage AI internally. We then also have a score-based system of articles and tickets. So when you're going through, you can actually see straight away that there's a knowledge base article very closely related to this. And one thing a lot of our customers do leverage is you can put a minimum score to this. So if the knowledge base is matched above 0.95, say, it can automatically send that out without you having to interact with the ticket at all. The same goes for the ability to see matched tickets. You can then view that ticket, see what was done, and straight away you've got that response available to you. In terms of another way you can view this, is we've also got the problem resolution finder. This is what's populating the suggestions field, and we can see we've got suggested articles, matching problems, and similar and open closed instances as well that we can view that we've got that matching score within. AI isn't just used within the triaging side of things as well though. There's lots of other functionalities. One of the other ones that I use myself in our internal Halo is actually when I go to email the user, there's a prompt set to this which just says, use the information that you've had from your AI search and create a suggested response. What it will do is exactly that. So it actually summarizes a knowledge base article or previous resolutions and provides a full-on answer. I can then populate the sort of bit more of the personal details of it. My email template will be set potentially within my profile, so I don't have to worry about the signature, and then I can send that straight out. In terms of, appreciate I'm going through a lot of the functionality, and I'm not really showing the configuration of it, and I've spoken about low to no code, and I want to try and be as transparent with that as possible. So in terms of the configuration of how that action actually works, it is a case of choosing the operation. In this use case, it's generating a user response and then giving it a prompt. So same as if you were working in ChatGPT, you'd give a question, it would then pick that up and be able to give you an answer within that. So similar sort of use case there, you'll be able to make that prompt. You can use dollar variables, which are automated populators within Halo, and essentially work as exactly that. So the rich action note here is the most recent response. So you'll be able to see, we've also said do not delete anything. So making sure you've got that buffer, that your AI responses won't ask your end user to do something that goes against your sort of standard protocol internally. It doesn't just have to be creating responses. We can also have the ability to improve responses as well. So this is when I mentioned myself using this sort of functionality internally. This is something that I use day in, day out, complete honesty. And it essentially is a very simple prompt just to make sure that your spelling, your tonality comes across as professional and as sort of made out as possible, so that when you are sending lots of emails within a day from the same help desk, you can begin to have a bit more of a consistent output of no spelling mistakes. And there's always a joke around the office that there's someone that is slightly ruder than they expect to be. You can make sure you sort of remove that functionality there as well. The next sort of side of it is the reporting side. And while Halo does have an online repository of over 900 reports, we do also have the ability to create reports using AI. So here, if I go into data source and scroll down, we can see we've got that query builder. If I am to to run the example query in here, generate that as a report, it'll actually write that SQL for me straight away. While this is sort of loading through, it doesn't just have to be done for tickets. The Halo database, everything is stored within, including audit logs, assets. So you can actually report on completely anything within that, begin to make the joins as well. Now it's created that report, I can run that test. It says test successful. As soon as I load that report, you can see it gives me all the tickets that I've opened within the last week. So we can see this is a test account, hence the sort of the summaries that might not be as normal as possible, but hopefully give you that idea of how easy it is to create that report.
That's nice. And actually, Lou, I think it's worth also pointing out the architecture of Halo is such that you can access the database underneath and generate SQL. So you're not limited just by what APIs are supplied. So it's very flexible how you can do reporting, actually. And this is great because it just makes it easy for business users to produce those things without needing to know SQL, but you've got it there if you want it.
Yeah, exactly that. And in terms of that database, sort of again, linking back into that security side of things, HaloITSM, while we store your data in the cloud, if you are to go with cloud, you as the customer have full ownership of that data. So we'll never action it. We'll give you read-only access to that database. You really do have full control of how you want to action it and how you want that to look within the system.
Yeah. It really gives you flexibility of the reports you can write.
One of the other AI functionalities, and one that I find that our customers actually enjoy the most, and even if they use limited amount of AI, have this turned on anyway, is this ability to enable thank you detection. And what this means is that when you are receiving tickets from your end users to say thank you for your help, thank you for closing this ticket off, or as I mentioned earlier, that ability to detect context in text as well. So even if they say this is great, you can close this ticket, Halo can pick up on that. It will still update the ticket with their message, but it then won't reopen that ticket thread and cause you to go down that route of having a loop of you open the ticket, someone else will get that notification that it's been reopened, close it again, and you get stuck in that spiral. So just the little things as well, that even if you aren't originally going to go completely full-blown AI, just those small things that can just help reduce a lot of time and a lot of those sort of little bugbears within the system. The final thing on this screen as well is the ability to have surveys. So within Halo, you can have one-click feedback, but you can also embed surveys into sort of a certain percentage of tickets when they're closed. Using AI, you can begin to have a generated summary of what those surveys are saying, and you can get a better insight into exactly what you need to improve on, but also, of course, what you're doing well as a help desk. So really being able to deep dive into that information, again, using this sort of additional AI service to help you get the most effectiveness out of that data. The final sort of thing I was going to show today is the ability to have a virtual agent. So a chatbot on the portal, it has HTML source code as well. So not only can you put it on the portal, you can put it onto a website, you can have it within your teams as well. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to essentially ask it what can it actually do today. So you can customize these chatbot flows, you can have as many as you want. They can appear slightly different to certain customers if they need different requirements. But what we can see here is it's got the ability to search through knowledge bases and answer queries. So on that one, in terms of your knowledge base within Halo, you can actually use AI to automatically create knowledge bases when you're resolving tickets. But then also you can use it so that if you ask your sort of chatbot, say my emails aren't sending, instead of sending you to a knowledge base, making you click on a link, making you go through that process, instead it will be able to provide a summary of that and give you an indication of what you actually need to do. Other ones, such as log service requests, it can essentially act as logging a request. Within the chat flow, you'll have your mandatory fields that are required, so that when your sort of user is using the chatbot and it's logging a ticket, you're still getting the same needed information as if they were to do it via the portal, just via a ticket form. And you can see all that information come into the system when you have automations running, or maybe sort of even AI picking up on certain things and then processing it. You can make sure you have that information as well. Similar to log instances for any issues, as well as being able to check the status of open tickets. So instead of having to go into it, find the ticket yourself, you can just call up about it. If for whatever reason it does require escalation, you can then begin to ask more questions and even speak to an agent on the Halo end, asking if there's anything else you can do or if they've had any updates from that. Of course, the extent to this is really up to you, how much you want your end users to be able to communicate and how far forward they can go to an agent front within that. And again, that sort of final point backing me up there, that ability to transfer to a human agent if required. Just also going to show the chatbot in use today, rather also just showing those functionalities. So not only can it pull from, say, your internal database, but if you've got sort of the want and the need, you can also have it search further out as well. So here I can ask, where can I get the sort of the latest version of Chrome? It will then send me a response using sort of knowledge base articles. If it needs to go further afield and you've allowed it to, it can do that as well. But of course, security reasons, you can also completely stop that. So it's actually sent me a link to Google Chrome. It knows it's not a Halo knowledge base, but the sort of OpenAI is aware that there is articles that can help with this. I can then also ask it to send me a bit more of a built-out link, so I know exactly where to click. You can use it as a resource as an end user to have all this information. Before we move on to the next bit as well, at the end of every conversation, you can actually have it so it logs a closed ticket with this conversation, so that when you are reporting on how effective your chatbot's being, how many tickets you're getting logged via each individual source, you can begin to drill down on if you're actually helping the end users or if they're just using it as a way to log tickets and you very rarely resolve it on the spot with them. The other side of it is, of course, that option for just helping you give summaries on known issues within the system. So here I'm asking about my emails are not sending, and it will send me a breakdown of that knowledge base, what I need to do. If I wanted to, I could then ask for the knowledge base and it'll provide me the link. But hopefully from this, you'll be able to see the resolution and you can go with that. You'll notice at the end that it's asked, would you like me to proceed with logging you a ticket? So it's giving the end user the options. Hopefully, if they've resolved it from that, they won't log the ticket. But if they do need to, you'll be able to log that and your agent will have access to this chat conversation here. I guess then, in terms of from a Halo perspective, one of the final things to note on this is really the flexibility of it. Because it is prompt-based, you can begin to build out functionalities that I haven't shown today that might just help your sort of case-by-case contextual basis. So one of a very good use case that I've seen recently is worked with a client who essentially, when they had a ticket logged, if the AI picked up that it was PII data, it would send it to an encrypted field and it would star out that information within the ticket thread. If you had permission to see that, so if you're within HR or you had the correct permissions to see sensitive information, you'd be able to go beyond that encryption and see the data. But otherwise, if you were just a day-to-day agent who didn't, it would be hidden. And it just helps you comply to those sort of GDPR compliances, but also any internal policies that you want to uphold as well. You can make sure it's automated and you don't have to constantly keep checking that you are in line with what you're saying to the public. So I guess then just sort of stop sharing my screen there and going back to the PowerPoint very quickly. I'm hoping that sort of the things you're seeing on the screen at the moment, you've also noticed from what I've shown today. Appreciate it might not be completely obvious at first time, but people find with Halo that when they get into it, get their hands on, you can see that. But I also wanted to summarize what Halo is actually doing for you. Now that we've seen the product, hopefully some of the things I say seem a bit more clearer. So all these 5 sections on the slide, Halo does really help you tie into that ability to increase efficiency, as I mentioned, removing that need for human resource within tasks that don't really require human resource. It also then just allows you to improve your service delivery. By freeing up your agent's time, they can spend it elsewhere where it's more required and maybe even be able to connect on those larger scales where there is a wider problem. They can have a bit more time to communicate the problems with the end user. Not only that, you can also optimize resource. So not only does Halo have resource allocation within the system, but you can build on that with AI. You can make sure that while you have freed up agents' time, they can then spend it elsewhere, where using the AI-driven reports, you might see that you're struggling to resolve all the tickets coming in within this area. You then freed up that resource to apply it to that. The other one is you have a database that can really help you drive forward decision making. So there's no different data within that, but AI just helps you leverage it and see it in a clearer pattern that will then allow you to make better decisions, quicker decisions as well, but also evidence decisions. So at any given point, you'll be able to see exactly why the AI is doing what it's done. It won't just be a case if it does it in the background, you've got no idea. If you're using it to make decisions, you can have reports, you can have those suggestions that pop up on the ticket as well. The final one is with the chatbot, and it's just that ability to build out a better customer interaction. So having them reach out to, while it is still a chatbot, a bit more of a personal conversation rather than you just going, I'd like to receive a knowledge base on an article. It sends you an article link, and then that's it. It allows you to have that little bit more of a conversation. And while I'm well aware that any AI-driven chatbot will never be sort of like talking to a human, it just makes that sort of first step for the end user as pleasant as possible and hopefully pushes them towards that rather than logging tickets and then hopefully reducing the amount of tickets that come into your system. So I mentioned it briefly earlier, but Halo also has been recognized by Gartner as one of the top 10 leading ITSM tools for AI. We continuously try and build on AI, and there's a lot of other products in the market that, as mentioned, sort of put a big price cap on that. We will only ever push AI functionality into the system if we see if it's actually of good use to the end user and the community would benefit from it. It's not going to be sort of, I know AI is a big buzzword at the moment. It's not something that we're just trying to get out all AI as quick as possible. We'll begin to build through that. Of course, I've showed a lot today, but I appreciate you might want to go and have a look for yourself. So we've got that HaloITSM.com. That is a fully functional trial. You can go through, you can link in your AI, you can use the Halo internal AI as well, and really begin to sort of having a go, test all the things I've said today, and hopefully get a bit further along the process. And myself and Chris will be hearing from you relatively soon. So yeah. I guess then just again passing over to Chris to add on any final notes from that. But again, thank you for sort of joining in today. If you do sort of off the back of this want to hear a case study from an existing client that uses AI, please feel free to get into touch with BDQ and myself, and more than happy to arrange that. And you can have an actual conversation with an ITSM sort of manager who has gone through this process and would be willing to share that information.
Yeah. Actually, Louis, we are getting some questions in. Would that be okay to sort of go through some of these?
Yeah, sure.
So David has just asked, there's 2 or 3 points to it, actually. I will probably ask the set 2. I hope, David, this is okay. I'll ask 2, 3, and 4 first. Does Halo have a CMDB, as in as an asset management database? If so, how can it be populated? And how from the environment? And if not, how can it ingest in config items from an external one? So that's about CMDB. So does it have one? How do we get data in there? And then there's and he also asks, can AI be used to create new services and corresponding service request forms? So I suppose, can it help configure the system?
Yeah, so sort of starting with the CMDB one, as they're sort of well grouped together, Halo does have a very mature asset management system in terms of how it's populated. Because of the integrations, you can populate it with third-party tools such as Intune, Landsweeper, etc. But also if you just got it within sort of a database or a spreadsheet, we provide CSV templates, and you can import all that information into the system via that. Once it's within the system, you then receive all the benefits of being able to link it into the ticket, being able to have it within change projects. When you're going through change management, you can also begin to map the dependencies. So you can see the wider scale of the IT system, not just each individual asset within a profile.
Yeah, I think it's also fair to say there's no consumption-based pricing on that. The CMDB is included. You can configure extra items and the schema in it as you require. And it's got a lot of flexible stuff around permissions. So you can determine, who gets to see what items from the CMDB. as required. For example, like scenarios where you've got multiple customers, each customer has their own set of assets. You can limit visibility of those assets to sort of relevant customers, for example, and only have them raise issues about the things that they should have access to. In terms of the AI, creating new services and corresponding service request forms.
Yeah, so in terms of that, it's not a use case I've come across before, but because of the prompt-based nature of it, because you've got that information within the system, you could use it to sort of duplicate those forms depending on what people ask for. However, what we find just sort of coming away from AI and going into Halo for a second is because of how easy it is to put these forms together, and you can also have dynamic visibility within those forms. You can begin to build out a form that covers sort of every eventuality straight away without the need for AI. And then, of course, you'll be able to have AI running when you are doing these service requests of if people are requesting things within a field that this isn't actually related to this field, you can then receive that report and then you can very quickly adjust those forms. In terms of the configuration linking into AI, you won't directly be able to use AI to change that form build out, but you would be able to use it to give you examples of where you can improve that build out. And because of the low to no code usage, you can make those changes very quickly.
Yeah. It's also, if it's in your fault set, David, you can also have different portals, different customers, both external, internal, showing basically different users in different organizations, different versions of your portal as well, and what forms you've got up there. Does that answer your question? Have you any more comments? Okay, are there any other questions from anybody else? As we've got Louis here, he knows the system very, very well. Okay, we've got some new posts. Yeah, that answers it. Any other questions from anybody else about matters AI, any of the other features of Halo, how it may integrate, any particular use cases you've got in mind? Okay, then. Well, in that case, Louis, is there anything else you'd like to show, or do you want to wrap up?
I guess just a final point, if there's no other questions, is just linking back to that sort of that first point of the fact that Halo is an all-inclusive model. So really highlighting that we're not going to try and, once you get to a certain point of usage, we're not going to try and hit you with an extra invoice or an extra bit of money that you just sort of demand to pay. We're all very transparent. I'm hoping sort of if you do come across myself or Chris at a later date after today's call, you'll begin to be able to see what the company's about. And I think a great example of that is if you are to go with Halo, if you are to join Halo, you'll actually be provided with a CSM. I mentioned that bit at the beginning of being able to bring out releases very often. You can actually have a quarterly, a monthly meeting with your customer success manager going over these features. So as AI becomes more and more prominent within the market and we bring out more features, you'll be able to actually know what's going on. You won't just have your originally implemented system and then feel like you're slowly going behind because you're not keeping on top of new features because you've got other aspects to be looking at within the system.
Yeah, absolutely. David has basically just asked about some other sort of non-AI things. I think it's worth saying that Halo has a lot of built-in features actually, and as Louis said, they're not modular. You just basically get them all. So it's anything from keeping track of contracts due to CMDB, knowledge bases, multiple portals. It's very extensive. A sort of mid-tier service now. I've heard it described as. So that's not a bad description. So if you've got any other questions, please let us know.
Just going to very quickly share my screen, sort of have the modules showing, sort of backing up what Chris was saying there.
Yeah. Okay then. Well, in that case, thank you very much, I suppose, Louis, for your time today presenting that. And
Thanks for having me.
there's no other. No, that's an absolute pleasure. There's no other questions. We'll wrap this up. If you've got anything else outside of this, please do just get in contact with us. It's inquiries at bdq.cloud. You've got a bdq.cloud website, or indeed Halo directly. Well, thanks a lot, Louis, then, and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.